What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Okay, today I have a very special guest for the fifth time ever on Psicoactivo, Mr. Matt Laslo from Ask A Pol. How you doing, Matt? Welcome back.
You use that term special very broadly.
No,
Thanks
dude,
for having me back, brother.
dude, it's pretty wild watching you do your thing, and that's why I keep wanting you back, though, because there's only like you and Joe Khalil. That's it. You're the only two guys doing that, and speaking to Congress people, trying to find out what the hell is going on with those drones, which is the most puzzling aspect of the first
I
half
was
of the
going to
year.
say, statistically, that makes one of us a plant, right?
Those are fighting words, Joe. I'm kidding.
Joe, I was going to say, that's on Joe. That's all you, Joe. CIA ain't hiring this
dude.
hair. No.
So the world is kind of on fire right now, politically speaking, but the topic has been like pretty consistent over the last couple of months or 3 months, and you've been right there. How has it been like for you trying to juggle between whatever Grush is going to do and the whole drone thing? Because there's been a lot of confusion there. How has it been for you?
The crazy thing about this new Congress is they kind of seem like maybe they're now getting their groove together. We'll see. Like Grush was just onboarded on the staff of Congressman Eric Burlison. But besides that, first 3 months, predating April, and like what? Trump was sworn in on the 20th or whatever. So like, yeah, it's been the past 3 months. Like the Trump administration covering it, it's just like boom, laser beams coming at you from 50 different directions, And so I get why the UAP caucus, the Congressional UAP caucus has like had a lot of other stuff on their plates. But honestly, as a UAP reporter, one of the few in this town, it's been fucking intense and hard just because I keep asking lawmakers about stuff and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, the stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that you like really cared about 2 months ago. Like in the last Congress, you really cared about this. And they're like, oh, that. And I'm like, what? And I think if they had a plan, and I don't know if they do or did, but it seems like hiring Grush, finally, pieces are aligning where at least a handful of members in the U.S. House of Representatives are now like conversant on UAP developments for the first time. Like literally, it's been 3 months of me just like asking brick wall after brick wall after concrete block after brick wall and like getting nothing. And I'm like, okay, start of a new Congress. I give lawmakers space. And like, so I also cover cannabis and all that. We have Ask A Pol drugs. The Congressional Cannabis Caucus hasn't even met yet this Congress. And so we're in April. The Cannabis Caucus hasn't even met yet. This Congress, turns out, the Psychedelic Caucus has had like 2 or 3 meetings.
Wait. There's a psychedelic caucus?
It's called the Path Caucus. Yep. And that's where like, I'm just like, this is a bizarro universe inside a bizarro universe. So like, one of my clients, I've got a wire service, the Laslo Congressional Bureau or LCB. One of our clients is Marijuana Moment. And so like Marijuana Moment has broken a bunch of news through us at the LCB. They broke in news saying like, yeah, Congressional Cannabis Caucus has not met yet, but the Psychedelics Caucus is like churning. And so
that's wild.
The interesting and like the most wild thing about it is Psychedelic Caucus probably did what the Cannabis Caucus should have done years ago. Because when it comes to the Psychedelic Caucus, all they do is talk about veterans. Veterans. And for good reason. Because one, God bless you. Anyone who served
Yeah.
the nation, blah, blah, blah. Like, good on you. But like, when it comes to studying PTSD in veterans, turns out that's a lot more important than studying PTSD in the rest of us. I'm like, hey, the rest of us, shh, let's just ride their coattails.
Let's stay quiet. We're a fly on the wall.
Like, let them, like,
That's
Congress finally seems cool with like shrooms and ibogaine or all that stuff. And it's like, okay, let's just let them focus on that. And so, like, yeah, it's just been bizarre world, whether UFOs, whether cannabis, or whether psychedelics.
That actually really cheered me up just now, man. Thanks. I didn't know about that. That's
Things
really
I do
good
for
news.
you.
That's really good news, dude. Yeah, I want to show you something real quick, just so we can get some context. This is from
Hey, bro, I'm into girls. Show me later.
So this is from Stephen Diener's Unidentified Alien podcast, and he just spoke to Burlison, and this is what he said. Check it out.
It doesn't mean anything unless we deliver it. So I understand now to me it's just raising the bar, because now there's expectations that we deliver, and I don't want to disappoint, right? So we've got everybody knows that we've hired him. I don't want to, at the end of the day, have this be, what the disappointment levels that we've seen before. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to have that moment where it, I'm able to go directly into a room and film a UFO. But I'm also trying to do that. I'm trying to get to that point where we get into a space, see to where we can see any of these crash retrieval vehicles and see any of the alien biologics, anything and everything. So we're going aggressive, and I've got a good partner with Tim Burchett and Anna Polina Luna. So we've got an aggressive team, and I think we're going to go after it.
That's amazing. So let me ask an obvious question. When you talk about trying to get into those rooms to see the hard evidence, a craft, biologics, is that an acknowledgement, Eric, that those things, in your opinion, exists because you're trying to get in front of them?
I look, when we have reports that there are things that are being studied, I have no doubt that there is a crash retrieval program, and that they're studying what craft that they retrieved, whether that's extraterrestrial or non-human is of another. It's yet to be seen.
Okay, so that's the only thing I'm going to show you. We're going to talk the rest of the conversation, but I thought it was relevant for what I'm about to ask you, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion between people about the clearance that Grush has. How do you understand it as it is right now? Because it seems to be like they already spoke to him on his skiff.
Well, so per that specific point of Grush being in a skiff, let's take a brief step back and remember the U.S. Capitol is its own universe that's outside of the White House. And within that singular universe of the U.S. Congress, we have two different universes. Like literally, they are worlds apart. And so it seems, from what I know, that the United States Senate, that the Senate Intelligence Committee, that they had Grush in a few years ago, I believe, and because he testified in front of the House in 2023. Tell me if I'm wrong. It feels like he testified privately to
Yeah.
the Senate Intel Committee, but that he testified before.
Yeah, he did. And with the
His
ICIG,
allegations came out. Yeah.
and with the ICIG too. Yeah, he did it in private.
Well, yeah. And so, like, everyone, I hate this. I hate to be the bearer of bad, terrible news, but like the Senate, he did that over here. And so, yeah, he testified in front of classified congressional briefing. On this side, in the House, he testified publicly in front of the House Oversight Committee. I get it. I'm feeling right now all of your questions, which are, wait, why don't they talk to each other? They just don't. And so, like, it's sad, it's pathetic, it's ridiculous. Ask for your taxpayer dollars back. Because literally, it seems like Senate has already like had them before their committees. It doesn't seem like any U.S. senators actually showed up to that briefing. It seems like it was just staff. But let me say this real quick. It doesn't seem like that really matters a ton, because whatever you tell a chief of staff or that certain person on their staff who's got the top security, the top secret clearance, what that person learns, they can kind of only tell their boss, the senator. And so, like, it seems like these senior lawmakers, especially on Senate Intel, seems like they're aware, they're read in enough, blah, blah, blah. I get that everyone in the community is like, wait, why aren't those senators there? Yeah. That's the U.S. Senate. Take it up with them. And so, like, on the House side, so let's take another step further back. When it comes to the UAP caucus, let's look at the individuals. Like, none of them are senior lawmakers who've been there decades or ages. And like, a part of the thing about the U.S. Congress is it's a seniority system. So when you're on top of the ladder, boom, you control your fiefdom, etc. But like, when it comes to Grush and these claims, we've had some very senior lawmakers sit in there, like what? Jamie Raskin, now the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee in the House. He was in there for the Grush hearing back in July 2023. He was intrigued. He's interested. He had questions. But he's a constitutional lawyer, so he moved himself off Oversight Committee onto Judiciary because, like, boom, that's where the action is for his legal mind. So when it's come to, like, the other folks underneath Raskin, whether Republican or Democrats, just like the heart of the Congressional UAP caucus is what? I think at this point, Tim Burchett, he's
Luna.
4 terms. Yeah, so I think he's 4 terms. He's low on the totem pole. And pardon me if we're not supposed to use totem pole in that way. The correspondent for National Native News here in DC, so I apologize to any of my Native friends if I use that term wrong. Apologize to you if I'm losing my voice.
No, you're good. You're good.
But no, and so that's where, when it comes to these House folks who are most interested in this, they don't have much, any clout. And that's actually where we saw, a lot of you probably know the name Jared Moskowitz. Jared Moskowitz, he got so much seniority this past Congress that, he's now on the Judiciary Committee and no longer on the Oversight Committee. It's a natural thing for lawmakers to move up and to, like, move on to a committee that best meets their constituents, etc. Or, to do the more cynical side of that, be in a committee where they have a better chance of reelection, you know, because they're like showing their constituents, like, hey, these are my bona fides. And so, like, most of these other folks on oversight committee, which are the UAP caucus folks, Burchett, Burlison, ... they don't have the power and the clout. And so they're not on the intelligence committee. They're not on, say, the armed services committee. And actually, we now have Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who chaired the second public oversight hearing, the one with Lou Elizondo and them this past fall. She got moved on to the Armed Services Committee, but she's low on the Armed Services Committee. And so, like, yeah, this is all like, what are you talking about, Laslo? When it comes to the U.S. Congress and that kind of any legislative chamber globally, seniority matters. And like, you only are as senior as you are. And the more clout you have, the more power you have. Right now is kind of the first time that we're seeing lawmakers kind of actually get a little bit of seniority who care about this issue. And if anything, we've seen some of them skip up. And this is where we've heard from UAP caucus co-chair Tim Burchett that he was a little frustrated when Anna Paulina Luna was tapped to be the secrets co-chair and not him. What? And we haven't dropped this yet at askapoluaps.com, but our last conversation with Burchett, he was not too happy with that. But but the way he deflects that is he's like, oh, of course, leadership, they're never going to pick me to lead anything. Part of me is like, wait, is that because Mr. Burchett, you're a little more cool-headed and a little, you know, as much as he's a jokester, blah, 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 it seems like he's got, no, I'm going to do it the flip way. It seems like Miss Anna Paulina Luna is rejected more by senior Republicans and other members of Congress who very much discount her. And that's where it kind of seems to many on Capitol Hill that she was given the chairwomanship of this new secrets task force. And the secrets task force, they're not just tasked with UAPs, they're tasked with
everything. Every conspiracy theory.
Epstein, JFK, MLK, all like those assassinations, like they're tasked with everything. And so part of the thinking on Capitol Hill is that Republican leaders gave this new gig to Luna and not Burchett, because Burchett might have known more where to go. That thinking may be upended. I don't know yet. You don't know yet. We'll see. But once Congressman Eric Burlison hired Grush, what we just broke at askapol.com end of last week is, oh, now Burlison, Luna, and Grush are sitting down talking together. So we might actually see something come of this, but it's been crickets up until like a week ago. And then if it was crickets, the crickets started chirping, piecingly
went crazy.
loud.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just yesterday, besides that video that I showed you, Grush, apparently, this is what Burleson said, that he already delivered on the list of both hostile and peaceful witnesses. And that's going to be a field trip for you when you ask about those things. But I did want to ask you, have you even like stumbled upon Grush by any chance? Have you seen him? Have you spoken to him? And if you do, any questions you plan to ask him when you do?
Yes, no, yes, no. You asked a lot of good questions in there. I'm actually intrigued, and this is something. So right now, Congress is on their 2-week long Easter recess where they're giving themselves 2 weeks of vacation time, even though the American people don't get that. And so I'm intrigued because what? So Congress basically gavelled out a week ago. David Grusch was hired officially, like his start date was April 1st. His first week, Burlison, his boss, is like, hey, he's got to go through all the like hoops and hurdles, the BS that any new hire in the government has to go through. So a bunch of admin BS, go through this training video, blah, blah, blah. And so it wasn't until the week after that where I like talked to Burlison, and he was like, and he's like, oh my gosh, he's my staffer, and he's telling us this stuff. And so like that's when him and Luna, our latest 2 exclusives up at askapol.com, those 2 were just kind of like floored because they're like, oh, this happened and this worked. And then Congress was gone for these next 2 weeks. So
do they not do anything during those 2 weeks at all? Just vacation, that's it?
Well, they say it's district work period. So they're at home dealing with constituents, except if you've seen all these town hall meetings blow up in lawmakers' faces. You now have Republican leaders coaching their members, don't do town halls. And so who knows what they're doing. Some are doing them privately, some are actually doing them. And, some want that vitriol and want to be on cable news or whatever.
Yeah.
All I know is that David Grusch doesn't want that. At least he was out there with the oversight committee or whatever. He's now a congressional staffer. And like, this is my big question for Burlison and him. For one, it's to his boss. Hey, Mr. Burlison, am I going to be able to interview your staffer? Because as a rule, 535 members of Congress, they've got 6,000 to 10,000, maybe 20,000 staffers between them all. No member of Congress wants anyone else speaking for them, especially not their staff members. And like, this isn't a congressional campaign. So if Burlison was running for re-election and he hired Mr. Grush, if he hired David Grusch as his comms director, then we'd hear from Mr. Grush. Anyone else on that campaign, we'd never hear from. If anything, we'd hear from them as like quiet leaks to the New York Times or Washington Post when they're like messing up. And, and like when things are imploding, that's when you get the whispers. But like most congressional staffers actually have no desire. And I'd say it's probably 80-90% of congressional staffers just want to be in the background. Like they're there just to feed information to their lawmaker, whoever they work for. And so like, we're kind of getting that sense from Grush. My question for Burlison when they're back is, hey, will you sit down with me and Grush and Ask A Pol for not a triplet, not a threesome, but hey, I want to know his thinking,
Dude,
and so
that's gonna be so cool if it happens.
Well, and that'll be up to Burlison. The interesting thing that he's told me so far is that like, because he's hired him as a part-time staffer. So that means, according to congressional rules, which again, I've been covering Congress 19 years, I didn't know this rule, but you can't share one staffer between numerous offices. And like, it kind of makes sense to me in that, because I could see a scenario where like Senate Majority Leader leans on a younger freshman member of the Senate and says, hey, I need these 2 staffers of yours to work for me, and I'm gonna, even though it's outside of my budget, it's in your budget. If you want this key post on this committee, I'm gonna need your 2 staffers. So they're gonna work for me, even though they're paid by you. So Congress just has a rule that negates that. That can't happen on paper because Grush is Burlison's staffer. So Grush doesn't work for the Secrets Task Force. He doesn't work for the UAP caucus. He works for Burlison. But as we saw last week, the chair of the Secrets Task Force, Luna, her, Burlison, and Grush sat down, and that's where her group or whatever, where they now have their direction they're going in. And so it's like, I can't emphasize this enough. In my 19 years covering Congress, and I'm also a professor on the side, in the hundreds of books that I've read on Congress, I've never seen a lawmaker hire the very whistleblower they're investigating to find out more about the unit they came from. And so we're in like utterly uncharted territory, which I think lawmakers themselves are kind of realizing. And right as of now, they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Where that goes from now.
And I think that due to your good relationship with Burlison and to the fact that Grush is an anomaly, really, because this never happened before, such a high profile individual, I think you can make it happen, though. You're going to charm him and you'll make it happen, I'm sure, man.
To a degree, but this is where, so I come down personally. I'm like, I don't know. How do I phrase this? Ask a Pol, like our whole thing is me taking your questions to the powerful people. I don't know if I actually want to bring in a staffer, because unless and once I have that conversation with Grush and really get from him, like, because what I've sensed from him, never met him, never talked to him, what I've sensed from him since his testimony in 2023 and him like bearing it all 2023 is he's not receded. He's just been like, I did my job. Y'all deal with it. And so that's where I doubt that he or Burlison would really want him to become the face of it, because kind of the brilliance of their whole play here, for lack of a better term, is they're like, we're testing very power structures. And so like, why would you want a staffer to get in the way of that? And if anyone's going to get in trouble, Burlison, Luna, like from my conversations with them, they're like, no, we would want to take that bullet. So like, I'm hoping to have some good conversations with Mr. Grush, but I've never expected that, in part because I never expect that of any congressional staffer, at least on the record. And again, I've never talked to Mr. Grush, but like once we do talk and we do meet, and this is also like the power of our community at Ask A Pol. There's thousands of y'all, and a lot of y'all know some classified shit.
Dude,
your name's never going to be out there, but y'all send me the questions And then that gives me the power when I go and
Yeah.
ask. And I think that's kind of the power of Mr. Grush right now. And I think the hope is, at least for him internally, again, I've never met him, but I think he's kind of hoping he can recede and his thoughts just kind of take over.
Yeah, I'm sure Grush already knows perfectly who you are, though, and that's what I was going to ask you, because you already met Lou at a bar once, and you guys took a picture and everything. Is that not allowed if you're like talk to a congressional staffer just in private? That's allowed, right?
It would be allowed, but I would never do it. Like
Okay.
when Lou and I did that, it was kind of because him and I were joking, like, hey, this never happened. Because if any of y'all ask me Lou's thoughts,
I know nothing.
no, I'm just sending you the link to his congressional testimony. This is what I know. It's confined to what he said, you know? But like, I'm a congressional reporter. Like, I know senators, I know former presidents, like, no, like I'm going to my grave with lots and lots of secrets. But my job is to also share those secrets as much as possible when possible. And so that's where I think, and I'm torn on this because the Secrets Task Force has seemingly been so clunky the first couple of months or two. And like, yeah, they only have a short window, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm always playing devil's advocate, but I'm very curious how they use him. And actually, I'm more curious how our friend, for lack of a better term, Mr. Grush, comes out on the other end, where I could totally see him leaving this short window or short period where he's like a congressional staffer, and him leaving and being like one of my former interns. I've trained more than 50 congressional interns over the years. My favorite one, his last day, I was trying to take him out for a beer or coffee, depending on their age. I go, hey, what did you learn from this past 3 months? And this guy goes, I've learned that I never want to interact with Congress or deal with anything in government again. And I'm like, that is a successful internship. You know, like, you get the gold medal. I'm so sorry I brought you into this world.
Yeah.
You know, he was a band.
It's how it works. It's how it works.
But I think, and that's where I'm intrigued on how Grush, because he's been so burned from every different way by the entire U.S. government, or seemingly, you know?
Yeah.
Now that he's like inside of Congress, it can go one of maybe 35 ways, but it can, those 35 ways are going to fall into one of two camps. Either, oh, cool, I can deal with Congress again, or, oh my God, that they're not people. You know?
Yeah.
They're not humans. Wait, they might be the cyborgs. Like lawmakers who are just focused on their own reelection. And so, yeah, I'm looking for Mr. Grush, but no, my goal isn't to score like a big interview with him. I think the UAP caucus is trying to harness his energy, what he does with that. And if that becomes too much, and if he's like, wait, they're harnessing my energy in a bad way, you know, like I'm not popping popcorn, I'm popping steel nails.
I wanted to ask you though, because this is like a more of a personal question a little bit about this though, but still personal, because when I first talked to you, you're a journalist. You have to remain objective, right? But I want to ask you, over this time that you've been talking to
Tell that to
lawmakers,
my friends at CNN.
over this time that you've been speaking to lawmakers and talking about the subject, any of those ideas that you had at the beginning, have any of those changed in any way? Do you, how's your view on what this that is happening could be, you know?
I don't know if my views have really changed one way or another. Like, I'm just a sponge. If anything, I've gotten more curious just because I'm like, wait, what is this roadblock? Like, wait, why don't you? But like, literally, case in point, Trump administration coming out early on in the administration, the press secretary, like week or two in, goes, hey,
No drones.
it might have been like the end of the first week. Yeah, no drones over in New Jersey. Like, oh, FAA, we approved all of those.
I was thinking of you when that happened, dude. I was like,
But I'm literally,
what is Laslo saying right now?
but literally,
No.
who cares what I'm saying? Since then, what have I done? I've gone and tracked down almost every member of the Jersey delegation who had a private classified briefing with former DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And Mayorkas, like, yeah, I get that he's been a pinata for the right. But guys, he has not been dragged in front of this Congress run by Republicans to account for his lies to Democrats, mostly. Why? Because there's not really any insinuation that he lied. All we have is the White House press secretary getting out there and saying, no, the FAA knew all these things. But that's where I keep pressing, because I'm like, wait, if they're saying the FAA knew all this, what does that mean for when the FBI, the DOJ, Department of Justice, and U.S. Center or CBP, Border Patrol, those three agencies testified just this past December in front of, might have been November. No, I believe it was December, but they testified in front of the House Homeland Security Committee, and all three of them, again, the FBI said, we have no idea what's flying over Jersey. So I get why Trump and his supporters are like, yeah, that was Biden, like blah, blah, blah. But no. Because while you might be targeting Mayorkas, which I could see, that's the easy partisan pinata, they haven't gone for him yet. Well, that was a classified briefing he had with just the Jersey delegation. But wait, that like top FBI, top DOJ, top Border Patrol official, I don't think all three of those agencies or all three of those people who testified publicly are that dumb where like you literally, if you lie to Congress, boom, you know, that's you in jail. All of them just would be fuddled. They're like, no, we don't know what this is. And so for them, the Trump administration to come out and be like, yeah,
nothing to see here.
Approved all these. Well, now the question should be, okay, why did the FAA approve these drones or whatever they are? Because literally, FBI, they say not even that they don't know what the drones are. They say they don't know what they are. They don't know whether they're drones or not. Their own testimony classifies these as UAPs. But when they call them drones, cool. I'll talk to you about the drones that you don't even know of. So the drones over Jersey, they hovered over 2 different munitions depots, like
Yep.
active working spots where America's like fucking bombs, the bullshit we use to like destroy the planet. God bless us, or goddamn America. But like, I don't think the FAA is really allowing anyone, any actor, to hover over where our munitions are being made. Also, the current president, who was then president-elect, and even part of the time, not even that yet, well, but he's also a former president. Well, over his Bedminster Country Club, that's where the drones also were. And so,
Yeah.
like, we haven't heard good answers or any answers for why the FAA approved flights over some of the most sensitive spots in New Jersey. And that's where now, talking to lawmakers of both parties, they're like, no. Like, that's bullshit. And they all know it. Members of the UAP caucus, I think they're actually losing some credibility because some of them are going along with this narrative.
Yeah.
And when I
saw
push
that.
back, when I push back, I'm like, hey, do you have any answers? And they're like, no, we just trust Trump.
Mm.
Cool. Trust but verify.
Yep.
If you're a Republican, do Ronald Reagan's thing. Trust and verify.
Yeah.
And right now, like, their trust has just been like this misleading BS. Yeah.
Yep.
This is
And
America.
the CBP even released those videos from the border of UAP that they cannot identify, and that is happening right here near my house, and it happens often, and they often record them. So yeah, it's very puzzling. Holy crap. And well, I just wanted to ask you about Congresswoman Luna, because she seems to have like a good relationship with Trump, right? And she does have that playing in her favor. Do you think that she might start touching more on the UAP issue with his new task force, or is she going to stay on that other BS that I think is important, but it's not like part of this, necessarily?
So yes and no. And this is where, kind of back to the start of this convo, this is where I think David Grush actually is kind of a game changer, for better and for worse. Some people have brought up to me like the fear of, the moving stuff because of Grush being there. I feel that angst, but I'm like, come on, guys. This is the US federal government. They're all a bunch of dipshits. Like, sorry, God bless you. But like, dipshits on purpose. And so, like, hear me out for a second. Because, like, I have a bunch of friends. I've been in DC 19 years. I have a ton of friends who are senior at all these different agencies, ... Neighbors who are senior at all these agencies. Like, they only know what they know. Like, that's kind of how the government's built. And so, like, go back to 9/11, the conspiracy theories that, Dick Cheney took down the 2 Twin Towers with dynamite. Dick Cheney's not that motherfucking smart. and like, I know him because I've been the correspondent for Wyoming Public Radio. So I at least know his daughter very well, and I've got to know him a tad. No, like, if anything, be afraid how stupid our government is. Like, we're not smart enough to bring down, or pardon me, they're not smart enough to bring down 2 buildings on their own, skyscrapers. And so that's where this is where we're just in uncharted territory, because Grush claims to have had a seat at that table. And so now him guiding them from within, it just seems like this is either gonna, or no, pardon me. It seems like to me this is gonna be a game changer one way or the other. And I've been waiting for it since he dropped his allegations in my competitors, God bless you, debrief or whatever.
News Nation,
claims, but when his claims first came out, to this day, Congress has done answered him and said, no, that's bullshit. We actually know about that. No, Grush's claims are there's recovered craft. Boom. That's claim one. Second claim is there are SAPs, these hidden secret access programs that are hidden from Congress. Well, if Congress knows about them, they should be able to easily come out, Senate Intel, Mark Warner, House Intel. Now, the dude from Arkansas, used to be Turner, now it's Crawford, I believe. So now it's like, all right, if Congress has been lied to, pardon me, if you've been lied to, like his claim is you've been lied to, Congress, come and show us. Like, no, we knew about that. Cool. End of Grush. Like, literally, Congress has had the power past 2.5 years to be like, nope, this is nothing. They haven't done that.
Yep.
And it's not because they don't take him seriously, because he literally was brought in to testify publicly in 2023. And then now he's literally brought on staff. And so, like, I'm waiting for those senior voices in Congress to just come out and be like, no, there's nothing here, blah, 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 and drop it on our laps and be like, see, you all were dumb. How dare you? Like, see, you're idiots, blah, blah, blah. They can't do that. Or, pardon me, they haven't done that. And that's
I don't think that's going to happen, if I'm honest with you.
Dude, but that's the thing. Until they do that, we don't have to really take them fully seriously, because they're not taking him seriously, even though, and pardon me, I'm kind of thinking Senate to House, like at least U.S. senators haven't taken him seriously, even though, back to your initial question, it was the U.S. Senate, their intel staff, that brought him in and heard from him quietly, but heard all he had to share, because their House counterparts, so speaking intel committee to intel committee, seems like their House counterparts have just been fine not talking about it. That's where it seems like we're just in this new era where I don't know how much power and clout these UAP caucus members, secret caucus members actually have, but they've changed the conversation in Washington, which then changes the conversation globally. And that's what I'm most looking out for, is whether they can keep changing that conversation, or whether they kind of fall into their own tropey trap and get caught up, and Epstein and JFK. Because guess what, guys? A lot of people have solved the JFK assassination plot.
Yep.
And it's never been solved. Still, a lot of people have solved it, just in their own mind. So, like, keep on solving it, but maybe let's talk about this other thing that's very pressing.
I have a couple of more questions for you
Yes, sir.
before I leave you. I want to ask you about Mike Turner, because presumably he was one of the people that was obstructing everything. You know, we saw the donors that he has, and it's pretty obvious that he had a conflict of interest there. He's no longer there, if I'm correct. Do you think that
he's out?
Yeah. Have you identified any other Congress people that may be playing that same role that Mike Turner left open?
Here, so yes and no. I think a lot of us, and like, you can find it at askapoluap.com. Like, I punched back at that mofo. I've published pieces where it's like just his donations.
Yeah.
I don't like, or pardon me, it's not, it's not that easy when it comes to Congress. And this is kind of just the problem with the contemporary American Congress, especially post Citizens United, that big Supreme Court case that kind of allowed on, or that treated corporations as if they were humans, individuals like the rest of us. You've seen all these donations pour out, and it's kind of like the party in power, they get all the focus. What we all have to realize is the party out of power, they're getting 40, 45%, sometimes 35%, but like they're also getting huge donations. This is whether it's pharma, whether it's even academia,
Arms.
dot. But like especially military industrial complex. But like there's a reason there are military contracts in all 50 states. That's just hedging their bets. And so like I've never totally thought that Turner was any more of a sellout than any of the other sellout colleagues of his. I know many people in the community have been like, oh, there's a shiny object, but I'm like, I just have it's never been that easy.
You're like, maybe, but we don't know.
Well, so the big thing I've been trying to snuff out, and like if you go to askapoluap.com, the most mind-blowing interview we've dropped this year isn't the news of Grush and like we broke that, blah, blah, blah. It's literally Jim Himes, who's the top Democrat on HIPSCI, which is the House Permanent Select Intelligence, blah, blah, blah. Here's an exact quote from Jim Himes. And so like for the last 2-ish years, Jim Himes has just told me to my face, and I've covered him, I've known him since before he came to Congress. So like he's a lawmaker who like texts every once in a while, and he's responsive. Like he trusts me, I trust him. For the past like 2 years, he said, I don't know anything about UAPs. Like they don't exist. Our committee doesn't deal with them. What he told me end of March is this exact quote. I took David Grusch very seriously. Wait, what are you talking about, Congressman Himes?
You've been saying no this whole time.
But he literally, for years, has been telling me, like, no, we don't think these exist. We don't give them any oxygen in our committee. So this is the big thing. And like right now, Congress is on this 2-week-long recess for Easter that they give themselves, no one else. My big question for Himes, because like I got, like, listen to that full interview. It's like number 3 or whatever on our site. Like he alerts me like, hey, I know about this, blah, blah, blah. That is such a sea change. And my curiosity is like, hey, did Turner just have like a muzzle on everyone in the committee? We are going to investigate this stuff. Or does no one talk about it? And like, honestly, that's what it's felt like to me. Especially like go to go to our I just saw it March 27th interview. Yeah. Episode 344 of Ask A Pol. Listen to that Himes interview, compare it to any one of the 9 or so. Because again, I know him, so he's been one of the people we've had on the show more than any others. It's night and day difference. And I'm like, what's the only thing that's changed in there? Oh, new chair. And so even though Himes told me a couple months ago, like, we're not investigating this during the NDAA negotiations, just last fall. Now he's like, no. And you listen, when I ask him, I start off sheepishly and I go, hey, do you know the name David Grusch? And he goes, yeah. That is news. Because a year ago, he was telling us, David who? Yeah. And so that's where, again, we have a new Congress, new positions, new roles that people are finding themselves in, but also finding their own in. So I don't think we have a good glimpse of where this Congress is on these issues for another 2-3 months. And then watch out, because 4 or 5 months, then they're just going to be fully campaigning for their lives for the next year. So y'all have about like a couple month window, few month window.
Fingers crossed.
They're listening. They're listening.
Yeah. Okay. So the last one is, I just want to ask you if you have anything that you might be able to tease of what's coming on Ask A Pol over the next couple of weeks.
Yes. I know we have Burchett, new Burchett coming out. I've also asked, we've got a senator or 2 eye rolling at the Secrets Task Force, which, just to take a step back, I interview 535 members of Congress. How many members of Congress do I trust?
None.
0. Like, I interview 535 liars for a living. And so that's where the beauty of Ask A Pol is, over time, we're going to give you every side of every angle. And then you can go write your own story off our material, just link to us and tag us. Like, we're not, even though, like, I'm a feature writer for Playboy, Wired, Washingtonian Magazine, Vice, ... Rolling Stone. Ask A Pol is just me taking your questions and asking them to your lawmakers. And that's where you all get to kind of do your own original journalism with us, which, have at it. Like, literally take that lawmaker, put it up against that lawmaker, what they said, then you all ping that press secretary and be like, hey, why is the head of HIPSCI, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, disagreeing with this person? I don't have answers. I just know what these motherfuckers tell me, and you're going to hear it verbatim. But that's kind of the beauty and the power of Ask A Pol. Like, we're in the post media era.
Yeah. Any of those
that term up, but like, the media, we're done. We're obliterated. Like, that's what we learned in the past, like, since the 2024 returns. And so, like, I'm empowered through you all. So keep sending me your questions, and we'll keep.
Do any of those upcoming
upside the head, one brick at a time?
Do any of those upcoming interview has any questions about Skywatcher, though? Just like this little final one, because I don't know if you've been asking about it.
So I don't believe so. You're going to see the beauty in real time. Give me my question, bro. What should I be asking? I got my notebook.
Have you spoken to Jake Barber, and what do you know about the Skywatcher initiative?
Dude, so that is the earlier question that I evaded accidentally. Nobody in Congress, and like it got so depressing that I just stopped asking about Barber. Because not a single lawmaker for first like 2-3 months of the year, nobody heard of him, blah blah blah. And it wasn't until I brought him up to Congressman Eric Burlison, the congressman who just hired David Grusch. Once I very poorly explained Barber and his accusations to Burlison, within like the next week, next time I saw Burlison, he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, I've now reached out. Like my staff got his info, and like he's like, we're now in dialogues." And so I don't even know how much of his interviews with Ross and them that Burlison ever saw. But once he learned from you all, who kept pressuring me to like ask about it, and like I literally was like, "Oh, I don't want to ask about this again because it's like embarrassing. None of them know about it, and then I look like an idiot asking all these lawmakers about this thing that they should know about." No. That's where you all empower me to not feel embarrassed.
Yep.
And I'm like,
you also force them to ask.
Know about this, dude.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where Burlison was like, "Hey, looked into it a little bit. My staff has, or reaching out." And so last I heard, and I haven't circled back with Burlison because then it became him hiring Grush and all that. But I still, to this day, even though I've asked 50 plus lawmakers, no one has heard of Barber's claims. And part of me is curious, like, oh, do they not have like the bandwidth internally?
That could be it.
But like, remember, it was like David Grusch shook Washington to its core. Like,
yeah.
He came in, and part of it was like proper timing. Remember, U.S. airspace had just been invaded by a fucking balloon. And so like that was the backdrop. And then, yeah, they gave him oxygen, hearings. Then he was given no oxygen, and he wasn't allowed to even speak about those things in classified hearings. Well, then I'm like, wait, so you were given a platform, you used it, the whole international media latched onto it, and then now you're quieted. And I'm like, okay, that kind of feels like the deep state that I don't actually believe exists, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, we're kind of seeing in real time, testing of the theory of Grush's claims. We're also really testing this Congress and whether they can chew gum and chew gum and chew gum at the same time. Right now, we're pretty sure they can't walk and chew gum. We kind of know that. Like, well, that's a lot of work. But can you actually chew gum and walk? Like, that's what we don't know yet. And it'll be interesting, especially as they empower Grush, as he goes out and he's kind of the lead on this stuff. To me, it's going to be interesting if it naturally comes back to Barber, and pardon me, this is where I'm always playing devil's advocate. Also beware, because sometimes when you have one whistleblower and another, one might have a publicist, one might have a different publicist.
Yeah, I feel
they might be fighting for that, like, I don't know that. I haven't seen that yet, but that's where anytime you get in this space, I mean Washington, D.C., we're a fucking knives out in the
Yeah.
dark.
It happens.
It's terrible. But
That's how it is.
But that's where our audience is just like supersede all that bullshit. And that's why I love it.
Yep. I love it too.
That.
Matt, I want to thank you for your time. And guys, please go subscribe to Ask A Pol UAPs. I'm going to leave links in the description for everything. But yeah, I hope I can get to talk to you soon again. And hopefully you can maybe ask a couple of questions to Grush. Let us know how it goes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys. Like and subscribe. You know what to do. Have a good one.